Our grandpa started this back in 1929. He bought a store from Mr. Weave about a half mile north of Kleefeld. Bought the whole thing, the building, the lock, stock, everything that they had, and moved it over to this site, which is about where we're standing right now, I think. We had the bill of sale till just recently.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much it was?
I don't recall the price, but it was normal, something like $1,500 for everything, including the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out of a little store, and then in 1950, then they built this store.
Including the post office, groceries, hardware, dry goods, gas, lawn and garden.
Yep.
True country general store. I believe the post office has been here since my grandfather started the store in 1929.
Well, I remember we were starting working with Grandpa, and I think you worked with Grandpa a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
And he was a very particular man. He was a cripple. He had polio as a kid, so he used a cane. And punctuality was absolutely number one. If we open up at 8, you open up at 8. You don't open up at 7:59 or 8:01. You open the store at 8. We lock at 6:30. You lock at 6:30. You know, he was also very particular about this cooler, and I remember being yelled many times, "Close the cooler! Close the cooler!"
As a child, you end up working here on Saturdays and after school, and you got the most menial jobs, having to sort empty pop bottles in the basement by company, right? And that used to be I thought it was a hard job, but now you think back, it was nothing to it.
Yeah. Recycling was big back then already, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had to. Everybody got 2 cents for their bottle. I mean, pop was 5 or 10 cents.
Down in the basement, we still have some of the old equipment that we have used in the past. An old cash register. This is what they used to use as an old charge account systems. And here on this side is still the list of people going back probably to the 30s. They are listed in alphabetical order, my grandfather's handwriting. Back to the Greenfield School, and a lot of names. As you can see, a lot of Isaacs lived in this area at the time, and Friesens, which is normal. A picture of our grandpa and grandma, and they're in the back of the store cutting meat. You can still see a red rose mirror there. Actually, right beside this counter where they were cutting meat were also a lunch counter. In 1950, they built one of those counters with the red chairs, chrome chairs. Roger still has one. I have one as well. And they did banana splits and hot dogs, ice cream. That was their thing. This other picture is the picture of the first store. That's the one that Grandpa bought back in 1929 and moved it, including the gas pumps, the barrels, and that was the original store. Grandpa lived, which would be to the north of the convenience store, and there was, I guess, a fair amount of snow. So he, one day when coming to work, and of course in a cane, he had a hard time, so he actually had to crawl to work, and he had had enough of that. And so he decided to, this was it, I'm going to build a house just to the south of the grocery store, which is of course Roger's house. He called his 2 son-in-laws and says, I want you to build us a house. We're going to go on holidays. When we come back, we want a house done. So they left for vacation, and when he got back, they had a house. I think that was our snowstorm in spring of '65.
Yeah, I think so.
We had that much snow on here that everything was out of hydro. Schools were closed. When they finally opened up the road, they sent a cat down the middle of which is now our 216 highway, Main Street. And I recall the snow must have been 3 or 4 feet high. And our yard, it was the same situation. We could walk up, which is now the convenience store, we could actually walk up the side of the store, and then with our toboggan slide down and hit this store on the way down. Yeah. And so it was a full day entertainment.
Anybody get hurt?
No,
I don't think so.
No, there might be dents in the wall, I don't know, but no. Our dad, if there was something new coming up in the market and they asked him, he'd go for it. Sewing machines, when they first came out. He sold the electric sewing machines. First one, and he actually supplied the Steinbach High School with all their sewing machines when garden tillers came out. He was the first one in this area to sell the garden tiller.
The gas-powered gas.
Gas-powered ones,
Yes.
right?
My dad got a hold of, I'm not sure who the wholesalers were, but buying bulk and
Bulk
remnants of fabrics. And so when he would generally make a trip to Winnipeg on a Wednesday, he'd come back with a pickup with bins full of remnants. And there'd be people lined up waiting for the remnants. And sometimes we'd have us as kids armloads of remnants walking in to put them into the bins, and our arms would be empty before we got to the bins. They were just snapped up so fast.
They were literally, and we talk about it as brothers sometimes, how we were so scared of these women because they actually attacked. Because we barely made it out this back door, and often we wouldn't get to the bin, and the fabric would be gone. We grew up on bad food. Which we need to say is that whenever ham was a little turning green or some other produce wasn't very good, it all came to the house, got cleaned up, and we ate that. I mean, we all grew up. I mean, Roger may be taller than I, but otherwise, we all did well, and but we keep telling family stories about eating old food and rotten food and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't actually, but that was our impression of it.
Yeah, basically,
we never got the freshest.
No, it was always the reject.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it was bad. It's just that it didn't have a good appeal anymore, and so it needed. And it wasn't bad enough to throw away.
Yeah.
Not good enough to sell.
No. The friendships that we built, over all these years, and you meet them, and you may not necessarily remember them by name sometimes. I don't, but you remember their faces, and you say, oh yeah. And then with time, they say, well, I used to be a kid and come steal candy from your store or something, that type of thing.